a little over 70 journalists boarded an Alitalia plane bound for Sri Lanka. This is like any flight except that it's papal, and that becomes obvious as soon as we are seated. The headrests carry the papal coat of arms. Alitalia crew hand out luxury brand perfumes and a souvenir program which tells us this chartered flight will fly over Italy, Albania, Greece, Turkey, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Oman and India before reaching Sri Lanka. As is the custom, a telegram of greetings from the Pope, who is head of state of the Vatican, is sent to the heads of state of these countries just as the plane flies over them. We hadn't even been 20 minutes into the flight when Father Federico Lombardi, the Vatican spokesperson, announces that Pope Francis will be coming over to greet the journalists. When the Pope makes an appearance, it causes quite a stir. Father Lombardi begins by saying the flight is unique because there are Filipino journalists on board and that this says something about the expectations in the Philippines. And then Pope Francis talks.
Buonasera, ne ringrazio la compagnia vostra.
Simple words that match the simple man that he is. Francis thanks the journalists for the company, says there is a lot of work, and says that he will greet each one personally. Many of the Vatican correspondents and international journalists on the flight have already met the Pope or are friends with him. But for the 14 Filipinos on board, it was our first time to meet him. As television journalists, we prepare what we call spiels for what we're going to say in front of the camera. But sometimes people like Pope Francis can just leave you speechless. It's happened to many others who've met him. They prepare and memorize what they'll say when they're going to come face to face with Francis. And then when he's there, everything becomes a blur. So the next best thing is to ask him to bless the 36 rosaries bought earlier in the day at St. Peter's. He obliges, puts both hands on the rosaries, bows his head, and closes his eyes. Francis is never known to say no, and he's known to listen to what you say. My seatmates, the other Filipino journalists, had their own moments with the Pope, that by the time he had finished greeting all the journalists, quite a number were in tears. The encounter was far from perfect. One thinks that one could have said something better to the Pope or thought of something better to ask him to do. But a moment is worth what it was, not what it could have been. That moment was priceless, and there is the possibility of many more. Pio Ontiveros, 9TV, aboard the papal flight from Rome to Colombo.